What's up, guys? How's it going? My name is Joe. We're back with another episode of British Guy Reacts, and this is part 2 of our every MLB team did get its name. If you've not watched part 1, I'd highly recommend you go and check that out. Do subscribe to the channel. 77% of people watching these videos aren't subscribed. Please help me out, man. Subscribe. Let's go. Let's get into this.
And we begin in the Western League. As a minor league team, the Detroit Tigers were already named the Detroit Tigers. The nickname dates back to a military unit called the Detroit Light Guard that is part of the Michigan Army National Guard. The Detroit Light Guard adopted the tiger as its symbol in 1882, and it remained the Detroit Tigers nickname when the American League became a major league in 1901. The Minnesota Twins also began in the Western League, moving from Kansas City to Washington, D.C. for the inaugural season of the American League.
So the Lions is one of the oldest names, then, right?
In 1901. They chose the name Washington Senators because of a previous baseball team that also played in Washington. The name Senators refers to Washington, D.C. being the location of the United States Capitol. Senators are elected by states and sent to represent that state in the upper chamber of Congress. Now, because of poor performance on the field, the team was rebranded in 1905 to the Washington Nationals. Again, since Washington, D.C. is the national capital. Nats for short was used interchangeably with Senators, and eventually in 1956 the team was renamed back to the Washington Senators. Following the death of the owner in 1955, the new ownership sought to move the team, and in 1960 Minneapolis was granted an expansion team to join the MLB. This would be an entirely new team, so jumping on this opportunity, the Senators owner proposed that they move their franchise to Minneapolis and place this new expansion team in Washington. The league agreed with this proposal, and the Minnesota Twins were born in 1961. Twins was chosen for the name because of the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, the largest city in the state, and St. Paul, the state's capital. These twin cities share a metro area and are built around and divided by the Mississippi, Minnesota, and St. Croix rivers. When the Western League became the American League in 1901, they wanted to start with a team in New York City. Unfortunately, they were blocked by the National League, and the league decided to start with a team in Baltimore, Maryland instead. This is where the other previously mentioned Baltimore Orioles team comes into place. They were the beginnings of what would eventually become the New York Yankees. Now, if you're still unclear as to why the Orioles was chosen, rewind a bit. Take some notes, pop quiz in the morning. In 1903, the two competing leagues reached an agreement that would allow the team to move to its desired location, New York City. They became the New York Highlanders. Highlanders was chosen for a couple of reasons. One, to highlight the location of the ballpark, one of the highest points in North Manhattan, and also because of a British military unit called Gordon's Highlanders. This only really makes sense if you know that at the time the team president was named Joseph Gordon, so these baseball players were his Highlanders. Within a few years, though, some sports writers began referring to the new team as the Yankees. Perhaps a more fitting name than the Scottish Highlander, as Yankee dates back to the mid-1700s to refer to people living in America. By 1913, the name had stuck, and the team officially became the New York Yankees.
It's an iconic name, right?
The Oakland Athletics, or A's for short, were also created as a part of the Western League, becoming the American League. Beginning in Philadelphia in 1901, the Philadelphia Athletics were a direct competitor to the National League's Philadelphia Phillies. The name Athletics was chosen after an amateur team from the 1860s named the Athletic Club of Philadelphia. By the 1950s, the Philadelphia Phillies began to have significantly more success and overtook the A's as the main Philadelphia-based team, creating a lot of financial troubles for the A's. Facing potential bankruptcy, in 1954, the team was sold to a new owner that moved the team ahead of the 1955 season to Kansas City, keeping the nickname to become the Kansas City Athletics. After a new owner bought out the minority owners to control the team in 1960, he began shopping the team around and looking for a new city. Potential landing spots for the team included Dallas-Fort Worth, then potentially Louisville. Potential names in Louisville were the Kentucky Athletics, the Louisville Sluggers, and even the Kentucky Colonels, which would have kept the KC logo on their jerseys and allowed for potentially lucrative business ties to either baseball bats or fried chicken. An initial move to Oakland was also tried the same year as Louisville, but all these were voted down by the other baseball owners. Eventually, after a strange threat to move the team to Peculiar, Missouri, yes, that's a real place, and on the heels of an expiring lease with the current stadium, in 1967, the league owners voted to allow the Athletics to move to Oakland ahead of the 1968 season, finally giving us the Oakland.
Why do the other league owners, or like the other team owners, get a say in where teams have to move? Is it so they don't like come on their turf, like on their own territory, steal their fans? Is it? I guess that's the reason, right?
And Athletics.
The Oakland
Now,
days.
there had been a desire in baseball to have a major team on the West Coast since at least the 1940s. An original plan was even disrupted by the 1941 bombing of Pearl Harbor. Eventually, the Los Angeles Dodgers became the first team in LA in 1958, moving from Brooklyn. In the late 1950s, the Continental League was a startup trying to rival the MLB and was looking for places to start teams. In a successful attempt to prevent this, the MLB announced a round of expansion with 2 teams joining both the American League and the National League.
Angels,
since the Dodgers owner owned the exclusive baseball rights to Los Angeles, he was able to block a rival from purchasing the rights to that new MLB team. And eventually, Gene Autry, an actor/singer famous for his cowboy roles, was allowed to purchase the team. Wanting to name it after a Pacific Coast League team, the Angels, he had to purchase the naming rights from the Dodgers owner that owned the name as a part of the Dodgers' move to LA. Once the name was purchased, the Los Angeles Angels then joined the league and began playing in 1961. Not only does Angels have a history as a name of previous baseball teams in Los Angeles, but Los Angeles literally translates from Spanish to English as the Angels, so quite the fitting name. Part of the original agreement that Autry made with the Dodgers organization meant that the Angels played at Dodger Stadium. They were also blocked from building a competing stadium in Los Angeles. Eventually, the team struck a deal with the city of Anaheim and built a stadium and moved the team. Because they were no longer technically in Los Angeles, but still within the giant metro sprawl, team name was changed to the California Angels in 1965 ahead of their move for the start of the 1966 season. After 3 decades of heartbreak for the Angels, Disney decided to take a particular interest in 1996. Perhaps this had to do something with the 1994 Disney film Angels in the Outfield. Eventually acquiring a full controlling stake in the club in 1997,
Never knew that.
Disney's subsidiary called Anaheim Sports, which also owned the Mighty Ducks of Anaheim at the time, sought to renovate the Anaheim Stadium. Part of the new agreement with the city of Anaheim meant that they had to have Anaheim in the team name. So in 1997, the team was renamed to the Anaheim Angels. By 2005, however, the team was now under new ownership that wanted to add Los Angeles back into the team name.
That's why I don't know about the Disney
partnership. So the team at that time was redubbed to the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Needless to say, this did not go over well with fans or residents of either Los Angeles or Anaheim. And this especially did not go over well with the cities of Los Angeles or Anaheim. After a somewhat lengthy court battle with the city of Anaheim, the lawsuit was dropped and the Angels were allowed to keep their lengthy name. However, and probably because of all this confusion and fighting, in 2013, the team officially dropped of Anaheim
the Los Angeles Angels
from the team name after negotiating a new lease with the city, giving us once again the Los Angeles Angels. After the original team named the Washington Senators moved to Minnesota and became the Twins in 1961, Washington received an expansion team as a part of the deal. Keeping the name of the team that moved to Minnesota, the Texas Rangers began as the Washington Senators in 1961. However, the team struggled financially and on the field, and the owner sought to either move or sell the team in 1970. The mayor of Arlington, Texas was particularly interested after trying to previously lure the then Kansas City Athletics to Dallas-Fort Worth. In 1971, the owners voted in favor of the move, with the team beginning to play in Arlington in 1972. Upon relocating, a new name was chosen, and the Texas Rangers were officially playing baseball in Texas. Rangers was chosen after the statewide law enforcement agency, the Texas Rangers. As a part of another round of expansion for the 1962 season, Houston was chosen as one of the 2 expansion sites. The name that was chosen from a contest was the Houston Colt 45s. The Colt 45 was a gun that was popular in the West in the mid to late 1800s.
I'm not going to say anything.
It even garnered the nickname of the gun that won the West. However, the name was short-lived, and in 1965, the team was renamed to the Houston Astros. This name was chosen to honor Houston's role in NASA's space program, and it coincided with their move into the Astrodome, where they would play on their new artificial field called AstroTurf. They really weren't afraid to go all in on the branding. After the Dodgers and Giants moved to California in 1957, the MLB wanted to add another franchise back to New York City. In 1962, the league expanded and added the New York Mets. Mets was chosen for the name and is a shortened version of the legal name of the franchise, the New York Metropolitan Baseball Club. Metropolitan was a natural fit, as it was the name of a New York-based baseball team that played in the American Association back in the 1880s. In 1969, the league looked to expand again, this time by adding 4 more teams. One of those teams was the Kansas City Royals, which began playing just 2 years after the Kansas City Athletics left for Oakland. The name Royals was chosen in honor of the American Royal, a livestock show, rodeo, and barbecue competition that's been held annually in Kansas City since 1899. Their name also slides in perfectly around other Kansas City nicknames: the Royals, the Chiefs, briefly the Kings, and also, we can't forget, the Monarchs of the Negro Baseball League. The Milwaukee Brewers began life in the MLB as an expansion team called the Seattle Pilots in 1960.
Since doing that logo video, I actually quite like this logo. Now you've explained to me it's an M and the B. It's the shape of like a catching glove with a baseball in the middle. It's a very cool logo. And I didn't see it. Honestly, I didn't see the M or the B. My brain doesn't work that quick, guys.
69. Pilots was chosen because the owner was a part-time pilot and because of the city's role in the aviation industry being the founding location of companies like Boeing. There were a couple of issues, however. The teams that joined in 1969 were originally supposed to start in 1971. The timeline was moved up so that all 4 teams could join at the same time, while shortening the gap that Kansas City would be without a team, having just lost their team to Oakland 2 years prior. On top of that, part of the agreement required the Pilots to pay $1 million to the Pacific Coast League that would be losing its Seattle franchise as a part of the expansion of the MLB.
$1 million must be a lot back then.
The team faced major renovations to the stadium that was built for the minor league team, and with poor attendance, the team was almost out of money entirely after its first season. The team tried to find a new location, but a local petition slowed the progress, and it became obvious to everyone that due to the finances of the team, new ownership was the only option to keep the franchise from going under. The original owner agreed to sell the team to Bud Selig. Yes, that Bud Selig, that would go on to become the commissioner of baseball in 1998. Selig then planned to move the team to Milwaukee. The city of Seattle filed an injunction to stop the deal and to keep the team in Seattle. This was on March 17th, after spring training had already begun. The players and coaches showed up to spring training not sure where their team was located or what their team name even was. The former owner filed for bankruptcy, and through the bankruptcy proceedings, the sale was allowed to go through just 6 days before the opening of the 1970
Let's get those jerseys made
The team's
rapid.
equipment was literally sitting on a truck in Provo, Utah, waiting for word on whether to drive west to Seattle or east to Milwaukee. When the team finally arrived in Milwaukee, the name Brewers was chosen for all of the reasons that we discussed during the Baltimore Orioles part of the video. finally giving Milwaukee its team, the Milwaukee Brewers,
Congrats,
in 1970. The San Diego Padres also joined the MLB as one of those 4 expansion franchises in 1969. Playing their entire time in San Diego, the name Padres comes from a Pacific Coast League team of the same name. Padres translates as fathers from Spanish to English and refers to the Spanish Franciscan friars that founded San Diego in 1769, 200 years before the inaugural season of the Padres. The Washington Nationals began as
Washington
the final
Nationals.
of the...
One sec. The hat's here for the Washington National Park. Go and check out my gaming channel, guys. I've got a prison sentence with the Washington Nationals on Road to the Show. Link will be in the description. I don't know why I'm pointing up there. It'll be in the description to my gaming channel.
4 1969 expansion teams as the Montreal Expos. They were the first Major League team to be located in Canada and were named after the Expo 67 World's Fair, which took place in Montreal to great success 2 years prior. Following a sale of the team to new owners in 1999, the team failed to secure a new baseball stadium and also could not reach an agreement on TV and radio broadcast deals. So in 2001, there was a proposal for MLB contraction that would reduce the league by 2 teams. Those teams were to be the Expos and the Twins, and it mainly focused on their inability to secure a new and up-to-date stadium. This plan was ultimately postponed, but the writing was on the wall that the Expos had to move. Proposed locations included Oklahoma City, San Juan, Puerto Rico, Monterrey, Mexico, Portland, Oregon, Las Vegas, and Charlotte. But it was eventually decided that Washington, D.C. would be the best.
You'd be buzzing if you got drafted to Puerto Rico, wouldn't you? You're living a good life out there.
Place for the franchise. Upon relocation in 2005, there was some desire to return to the name Senators. However, the team opted to use the name Washington Nationals, which was used until 1956 by the franchise that eventually became the Minnesota Twins. The reason Senators wasn't chosen is because, ironically, Washington, D.C. does not have any senators and has no voting representation in Congress. This makes Washington, D.C. the only place an American can live in the U.S. where they can vote for president but have no representation otherwise. Write your congressperson, support D.C. statehood. Anyway, relocating to D.C. gave us the Washington Nationals and finally returned America's pastime back to the nation's capital. The Seattle Mariners were founded as a part of an ongoing lawsuit after the previous franchise, the Pilots, moved to Milwaukee in 1970. After losing their team, the city of Seattle and the state of Washington sued the American League for breach of contract. In 1976, the American League agreed to give the city an expansion team if the city agreed to drop the lawsuit. This began the expansion process, and Seattle officially joined the MLB again in 1977.
Mariners.
The name Mariners was chosen by the team after a contest was held in which fans submitted names for the team. Mariners was the winner because of how well it fit the city of Seattle and its marine-based culture and industry. The Toronto Blue Jays were also a part of the same round of 1977 expansion. Their name, too, was chosen by fan suggestion. The Blue Jay was a popular choice and ultimately won. It refers to the bird of the same name, and the color blue fits with the colors of other Toronto-based sports franchises. Well, mostly.
I was gonna say,
in 1993, the MLB again decided to expand by 2 more teams.
The Marlins.
One location that was chosen was Denver. Denver had long wanted a team in the majors after successfully fielding minor league teams. They even built Mile High Stadium for their Denver Bears minor league team with the intention of being able to expand it in the future for a major league team. Once Denver was chosen, they quickly settled on a name, the Colorado
Rockies.
Rockies was chosen because of Denver's proximity to the Rocky Mountains and because the name was used formerly with an NHL franchise that was based in Denver, also called the Rockies. The other team included in this expansion was the Miami Marlins. Before they were named the Marlins, they considered names like the Florida Flamingos. Hey, it's got alliteration going for it, but that might be all that it's got going for
Florida
it.
Flamingos.
They eventually settled on the Marlins, which had been used by a former minor league team also named the Miami Marlins. However, they decided to ditch the alliteration altogether and started as the Florida Marlins in 1993. In 2012, the Marlins moved to a new stadium, and as a part of an agreement with Miami-Dade County, where the stadium is located, they agreed to change their name to the Miami Marlins, restoring alliteration and peace to the universe. The final round of expansion, at least so far, happened in
Diamondbacks
1998.
and Tampa Bay
One of the
Rays.
franchises was awarded to Phoenix, which had grown from the 99th largest city in the U.S. in 1940 to the 9th largest by 1990. Phoenix also made sense because of the presence and the success of spring training baseball happening all over Phoenix every spring. Now, the name chosen for this expansion team was the Arizona Diamondbacks, intentionally adopting the regional representation of Arizona over the localized Phoenix Diamondbacks. Diamondback was chosen because of the prevalence of the western diamondback rattlesnake and its distinctive diamond pattern on its scales. These are found all over Arizona and can make for a bad day for hikers that aren't paying too close attention. In only 3 years, the Diamondbacks would win the World Series, making them the fastest franchise ever to do so and creating one of my favorite childhood sports memories. Tampa Bay was the other location chosen for expansion in 1998. Choosing a team name became a little problematic. Originally, they wanted to use the name Tampa Bay Stingrays, but they ran into a naming rights issue as the name was already used by the Hawaii winter baseball team, the Maui Stingrays. The team then opted instead for a local type of ray and began as the Tampa Bay Devil Rays in 1998. In 2008, the team underwent a bit of a rebrand. After considering a few other names and refreshing their uniforms, the team settled on Tampa Bay Rays. It must have proved lucky because that very same year, the team made its first World Series appearance. And there it is, how every MLB team got its name.
There it is, guys, how every MLB team got its name, as the guy said. I enjoyed this video. I didn't speak too much, but I was just trying to listen and learn at the same time, you know. Some of these videos, I don't want to talk over the information while it's being given to me. I also don't want to pause too much, but very interesting to see how these teams did get the names. Makes more sense to me now, especially like the Arizona Diamondbacks made no sense. The Tampa Bay Rays also shone some light on it there for me. The Nationals from the Senators made some sense. Who else did we have? The Seattle Mariners. I didn't know it was a marine town. Texas Rangers obviously made sense. Great video. Let me know what you guys thought of it down below. We could do this type of video also for, I think we've done it for NFL teams, but we could do it for NBA and NHL teams. Do subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you for the next one. Take it easy. Peace.